Good and the very best morning to everyone. Myself, Sanjeev Kinnawar, current president of Cosma, also director in Aero Electricals India Private Limited, Mumbai-based switchboard manufacturer. Indeed, it is a great pleasure for me to extend on behalf of Cosma board warm welcome with open arms to all the members for showing up to our today's session. Also, some academics from Khopoli and Pune engineering colleges have joined, and their students also have joined. I recognize them also. Well, today's subject is a success story of Selec by its founder, Mr Samir Kaji sir. He is also a Cosma Gaurav Award winner in 2016. Today's success journey is very special and dear to Cosma members. This is because Selec was established in 80s and Cosma was also established in 80s. Today it has a pan-India presence and 70 plus countries globally with world-class product basket covering PLCs, process control automation products, HMIs, electronic timers, relays, electrical measurement meters. Let us all cheer and welcome Team Selec with big round of applause. In my humble opinion, to cut short, success of Selec is because of very high quality products at an affordable price, absolutely no compromise on quality standards, customer centricity, transparency in all dealings, service support, and then the biggest one is they listen, understand, go beyond boundaries to meet the specific needs of customer. Their major thrust is in the last one actually. I'm witness to all these facts since Cosma team has visited their works, and I know Samirji closely. All above is clearly visible in their positivity filled MAPE factory. Many of us have started around the same period, but have nowhere near grown as much as them. So let us understand what Selec and its founder did differently. Let us listen to their values, discipline, culture, and strategy they adopted to scale to this height in such a short span of time. Here I want to mention they are a huge well-wisher of Cosma, be it a Elcrum advertisement, they are always ready. Also, they make it a point to attend all our Cosma programs. Now I request Satish Kaji sir to say a few words about Samirji with added warmth since he dearly knows him. Lastly, let us all recognize the efforts of our director Anand Jayawant and Vishalji for organizing seminar for us on a regular basis. Satish bhai, your turn, please.
I gave a clap for Anand and Vishal. Welcome, Samir bhai. Welcome to this Cosma's meeting where we are very eagerly waiting to listen to you. How you have succeeded and overtaken so many competitors in such a short span of time. Friends, one thing makes me very proud about the whole thing because Samir and I share the surname. There you people should have no doubt that Samir's success and Cosma's success is about the same level. Though our Sanjeev is basically a nice person, so he won't accept in last 7-8 years since Sanjeev has been heading Cosma. Cosma has made phenomenal progress. I can see a number of faces in this group today who have joined in last 5-6 years. Congratulations, Sanjeev. Sanjeev, you have grown in stature in last 4-5 years since you have become president of Cosma. And Samir bhai would join hands with me in this respect that we have in Sanjeev a person who is worth lifetime president of Cosma. Anyway, now coming back, I have visited Selec factory. I was amazed to see not only the setup, but the quality or selection of the machines, which are of the highest grade in the world. So the machines not only produce the quality, but also at a very fast speed. And that is one reason for success of Selec. I don't want to go into detail because I have understood what Selec is, and I don't want to be his competitor, but I want to listen to him today. So over to Anand. Please, Anand, if you want to add anything, otherwise over to Samir Bhai.
Oh, I just I also visited his factory, and in his lane, I think he is having at least 8 to 9 factories in a row, all of 3-storied, and I gone up and down 3 stories for 8 factories, and it is astonishing. And I what I feel at that time is. I think Selec is the #1 factory, at least in electronic component manufacturing, and having all European standards. So I really appreciate and congratulate Samir Kaji, and over to Sriram Joshi, please.
Thank you. Thank you,
Yes.
Anand sir.
Yes.
Thank you, Sanjeev sir. Thank you, Satish sir. Thank you, all the present directors, well-wishers, and educational institute lecturers and CODs. So before starting an interview with Samir Kaji, Anand told me that you have to cover interview and you have to cover the success story. मैंने तो पहले ही बता दिया भाई, मैं तो पहले ही काजी लोग से डरता हूँ सरनेम काजी है तो मेरे को टेंशन है, लेकिन एक चीज अच्छी है उसमें कि I am the only one person who are able to question Kajis. Otherwise, even lawyers can't question Kaji. And after all, yes, Kaji say is a final. Am I right, Satish sir? So, welcome.
But Shriram,
Yeah.
you should feel happy that Kazi तेरा दूसरा शादी करा सकता है.
अच्छा आइडिया दिया सर, थैंक यू. Okay, so I think Sanjeev sir has covered all the main points regarding the Selec, but there are many things unhidden behind Samir Kaji sir, and we will try to explore this because it is going to be fruitful for generation coming up and generation next. So first of all, let me tell you very frankly, मैं Selec का प्रोडक्ट कम से कम 8 से 10 साल से जानता हूँ. I mean regular using it, but I have never come across Samir Kaji sir because it was the system which was so perfect and there was never any problems to complain, and the supply and you can say solution providing was so efficient. मैं समीर काजी सर को तभी जानता ही नहीं था. The first time I saw him was in Cosma Gaurav, and later in this year I came to face when Samir bhai visited us. So I tell you very very frank thing, हमने सर मैं बुक्स में बहुत स्टोरी सुनता हूँ, साइंटिस्ट का स्टोरी सुनता हूँ, अपना नए बड़े लोगों का स्टोरी सुनता हूँ, लेकिन मैं समीर काजी सर को मिला, then I realized he is the real Thomas Alva Edison of our electrical field, because everything he has achieved is through consistent experimentation and his product knowledge. And so I would like to ask Samir bhai, many misconceptions regarding Samir Kaji sir. सब लोग बोलते हैं कि समीर काजी साहब का ये तो एम्पायर अभी से नहीं है, उनके पिताजी के टाइम से इसलिए इतना बड़ा हो गया है. कोई लोग बोलते हैं कि समीर काजी सर का पीछे और कोई दूसरे का हाथ है. तो मैं आपको पूछना चाहता हूँ सर, आपका फैमिली बैकग्राउंड कैसा था? Was it business orientation was there, or I mean are you the first you can say generation entrepreneur, or it was a family business? So Samir ji sir, will you please elaborate about?
Thank you, Sriram. I mean, first of all, before I start, let me thank everyone here at Cosma and for all the kind words that all of you have given. I don't believe that, success is a very relative term. Success is also my definition of success is a little different from the way the world sees it. I think everyone have their different circumstances, and the way in which you live your life in those circumstances is what one's, I won't call it even success, but it's a recognition of a person. And a lot of things in life really depend upon luck, both. And I've had my share of both. So while somebody says, I'm a very otherwise quiet, shy person who have heard these kind of things for the first time. So please, I feel a little embarrassed, but to be honest, I can share with you, as you said, the spirit of whatever I share is for the generations who are at different stages of the questions you're asking. In that spirit, let me share. It is not so much about Selec. It's about an experience of a life and the best that I learned from it. So, from that point of view, I would say that when you ask me what was my family background, so my father, his background was in finance. He was, a chartered accountant, and he worked for large multinational companies. The last job he had was with Tata Chemicals. He was financial controller there. And all his life, he was a salaried person. We were a middle-class family. And there was no other family background to business, at least in my immediate family.
Okay. And how your school days? Have you brought up in Mumbai itself?
Yeah, I was born and brought up in Mumbai. I lived in the south of Mumbai. And I I went to a school which was called Xavier's Academy. It was starting from the 5th standard, and it was a boys' school. So I was an ordinary, I never had, I think I never stood among the first 10 of class, at least that much I remember. And so I was average in my studies. And but the one thing that was there at my school was that it got over early. So I would be home by about 2 o'clock. And my father, he had a lot of interest in books. He was from a vernacular medium, from Gujarati school background. So in order to learn English, he became very good at the language, but he picked up a lot of books from the roadside in Mumbai. They were available, old classics, and he had collected a lot of these books. And in a room in my house, when I would go home, I would find all these books, and I had nothing better to do. So, and some people had gifted books even to my family to help me in science, and there were series of science books. So there were books on literature, on poetry, science, and even palmistry, for example. So this became a pastime for me, and I used to come home and I used to read all these books. So that was how I got a wide array of learning. And my interests were not kind of dedicated to just one area. I also experimented a lot. The science books gave a lot of experiments, and this was fun for me. So I started experimenting from what I saw there. And, it's one of the things that when you find you have time to yourself, there are no other children around, and you start doing things. So I would spend that time inventing things like games, small toys. I would make things out of ordinary stuff, out of matchsticks. I would try to make planes out of wood, make boomerang. So there were so many different things that I used my time with. But I did it with a lot of passion. This passion was there, feeling was there. And my, hobbies were also many, whether they were gardening, stamp collecting, things like that, But what was also very, very much prominent in my life in those days was sports. I became good at many sports, whether it was swimming, running, cricket, table tennis. So, but what really, at that time, my instinct, I still remember, was to do things in a particular way. Technique was very important for me. So I would read about things, how to grow a plant. I would read about how to play a sport. I would buy books, learn the techniques. And that is something that I remember today as being important, and it stayed with me.
And in that context,
yeah,
I just want to ask you, any particular book or author which have great impact on you at that time? Do you remember anyone?
So I don't know whether it had impact on me one way or another. It's just PG Woodhouse was my favorite, and I read more than 90 plus books PG Woodhouse, and whether it made me a romantic or sometimes humorous, I don't know, but in terms of impact, but that was my go-to author.
And what was your dreaming about when you were in school days? It was a
I dreamed
scientist,
of having
business tycoon, or
I think all of us, maybe two things were interesting. One was to play, I mean, I love to play. So that was my biggest interest. And beyond that, I didn't even think. So, but I was not very oriented towards exams, scoring. I was interested in learning things. I was curious, I would say. Curiosity was more important for me. And reflecting back, I feel that the education system doesn't allow this curiosity. Young children are made to spend so much of their time with studies and exams. And those times were not so pressured, we were not pressured. And there was a lot of time. So it allowed development of curiosity. And I think somewhere we have to change that for children because we put too much pressure on them.
True. What you have said is very important in today's context because we can see, on this today's education, a lot of pressure is there just to completion of one assignment, making a second assignment just copying. And as you said, there is no actually scope given for experimenting. That is unfortunately missing in this. And then which was your typical subject in, say, when you were in a matric and when you realized that, yes, I'm going to do this or I'm going to choose this stream?
Yeah, I mean, one thing I realized about school now when I look back and I see a lot of people even coming to my company, young engineers and people, I feel that this, I used to do my homework in the bus finally many a times. And this pressure of homework always got to me. And the whole concept of having to complete something or to do something for the sake of finishing it or for an exam, this ruins a lot of talent. And I see people and I explain to them that, you see, everything you come to do now, you bring that same mindset that you had in school of having to finish something instead of spending a detailed time on it. This to me is seen across everywhere. But, coming to your question, what subject interested me? Yes, science interested me because of those experiments, trying out things with moving coil in a horseshoe magnet. And there were so many things that I did that kind of caught my fancy. So I thought physics and science was my interest. So I automatically thought of going for science.
Okay. And I think when you were in the college, naturally, super education in IIT might be perhaps your choice or doing any particular engineering. So will you please tell us regarding your post-schooling or after 12?
So what really happened was just give me 1 second, I'll put this phone on. Yeah, what happened really was that I scored very well in my SSC exams, but there was a mishap that happened. I was eligible to get into the best colleges in town, but it was really a mishap that I didn't get into both. And then I got into a college that was not at all reputed in those days. Now I don't know, but at least not for science. I don't think it is still. So I got into Elphinstone College as a default situation. There, my whole concept and thought what college was that it is a place where I will get to learn fundamental science. All this went out of the window because the way education was from given fixed textbooks and the teachers used to just go to the board and write something. So I got disinterested very fast. And that college allowed you to not attend class. I mean, nobody asked you where you were. So very, very soon after I was going to 11th standard, I stopped attending class. And then I naturally turned to sports because that was my next best interest. So I started playing table tennis more seriously. And because my technique was very good, I joined a club. The club, and 2-3 months, they saw how good I was. They put me into the team. And soon enough, I kind of, one of the matches, I even beat the national junior champion. So they became very, they said, this person is new star of table tennis. And they put me into national coaching camp and everything. And then they put a lot of pressure on me and they said, you have to win now because we've done so much for you. And that is the day I started losing. So one more example of how you put pressure on people and they can't perform. But over a period of time, I got completely, disillusioned with education as a system, and I was just disinterested. But I thought, yes, I'll get over all this and I'll get into IIT. That was my thought. IIT must be something brilliant. So I studied for IIT, didn't get in for 2 years. But I, in the meantime, didn't get enough marks to go into engineering college either. So I didn't go to engineering. And I took up BSc in the same college. After which, the thing was, I still wanted IIT and I still had one more chance. So I appeared again and I didn't write any of the papers of BSc. So at BSc first year, I simply didn't write my exams, which means there was no question of passing. And I didn't get into IIT either, So now I was stuck with having to do BSc, no engineering. And then I was not comfortable with studies. So I again failed in 2 more subjects in the second year. Mathematics was something
I would just want to ask you here.
Yeah.
You, I know.
Yeah.
So, but in this situation, it is quite likely that some person can go into nervousness. So how do you overcome this and how do you accept the further challenges? It's quite likely when you try for 3 years and you don't get it, and simultaneously you also left even paper of BSc. It can be quite great nervousness.
No, it's very depressing. I mean, that period of life, if I recollect, I had lost confidence in myself. My father also, I mean, obviously he was not very happy. No, he didn't say anything, but he must have thought that what's going to happen to my son. And so it is, maybe some situations spur you on, but at some point I realized that I had to make something of my life, and that was in the second year of college. I said, better I should at least, do things in the right way and go forward. But for some reason, I was not pressured into scoring anything for the purpose of exams because that was not my build. It was not my makeup. I never did anything in my life that I can recollect that I wanted to get somewhere or reach somewhere. I just wanted to be happy doing what I was doing. That stayed with me for a very long time. I mean, I had never wanted to reach anywhere in life. So that, I think, allowed me to take interest in the things that I did. I mean, for example, what happened in the second year, because I had to clear, one of my friends suggested take a tutor. So I hired one tutor, and he was just 4 years older than us. And he came to my house for the first class. So I told him, mathematics, I can't get to doing, it's too repetitive. So he said to me, okay, start doing this practice, etc. I said, first, before you start, bring me the original text that tells me why this calculus, integration, derivation, what is the meaning behind it? Why do you have to do this, So you give me that original, whoever has designed this, the writings of that, and I will take tuition from you. So next day he said, you are not the kind of person I can teach. This is not my cup of tea. But 2 days later, he called me again. He said, nobody has given me this kind of challenge, So I will find these books for you. He came home with 2 books. And I read those books. I mean, read means there was still mathematics, but the first 10 pages were very interesting because they actually gave a lot of theory. And I imbibed that, understood that. And I recollect, many, many years later when I was giving instructions to my team on how to build a PID controller, it was that knowledge that stayed with me that actually was instrumental in implementing that. So that was my makeup. And for the third year of college, by the time, I had to clear all 3 exams, BSc, and it was also had to score enough marks, but I discovered a different technique of learning. And that learning process helped me clear everything. So I developed interest in subjects because then I started going to the library, I started researching, and whether it was physics or other things, this self-learning process, that was what kind of, took me forward. And I would research 4 or 5 books, and then I would imagine that this is what I am writing. I'm creating this theory, and I would rewrite that theory by myself. And this is a learning process that I would advocate, to a lot of people, instead of just trying to reproduce what you read or what one reads. For students especially, what you create from your mind is something that stays forever. And that's the way I learned. And then things became automatic, But what really was the obstacle in the third year of college, the biggest obstacle that happened was when we had to do electronic practical exams or practicals. And I saw that there were no practicals happening. I had taken electronics as a special subject, but electronics practical were not happening. And everything else I could study and clear as an exam, but this was something that I could never have done because this was a practical requirement. So I went up to the professor at the time and told him, we're not doing any of this, so how do we clear exam? He simply said to me, you know what, I don't know any of this because I'm a physics expert. I have no knowledge, electronics is too new. So then I kind of got scared. I said, okay, but what happened last year? You were running this batch last year as well. So he said, no, there was one boy, his name is Milind, and he did everything. He made all the practicals, he taught everybody, and that's how I didn't have to do anything. So I immediately took his phone number from that professor and I called up Milind. And I said to him, look, I'm in trouble. He said, come over to my house. I went to his house. He gave me a bunch of circuits and his journal. And he said, you take all this. And I went home with a plastic bag full of mixed up circuits with wires. I took them all out of the bag and, opened them all out. And in about month and a half, I unraveled them from the journal. I learned all the experiments. But, and then, towards the end of, I taught all my friends these experiments. And when the final exam came, the professor actually told me, you actually build up all the practical exam now because he didn't know how to do it. So, but it triggered an interest in electronics, and that was a starting point for me that made electronics a favorite subject. I would then, I told my father, buy me some equipment. I bought a meter. He bought me some books, and I started, doing work at home. So that's how my interest started in electronics.
So I think we should also thank Professor and Milind sir for future of Selec. I think because it is
absolutely. I mean, Milind, he's still a great friend, and some people help you along in your life, whatever way it comes about. I mean, everything in my view is. When I look back, I think all these things were kind of, they were dots on the line which I didn't know was being drawn.
Okay. Then later you did a MSc in electronics. Am I right? And you got a master in, I mean, not the degree. I am referring to the master in applied electronics. So
actually, what happened is that by then I had pressure on me to start working. I wanted to get married soon in life. And so I also, when I came out of college, and I scored, overall I scored a first in BSc after across all 3 years. And so when I wanted to take admission to MSc, I told the teachers of that college, where they had become fond of me by then. So I told them, like, you know, I will come here, but don't ask me where I am. And Milind had recommended to me that I should attend MSc classes that were going on in the BSc vacations. So because they used to take some microprocessor classes separately. So I asked the professor who was taking those classes, one Mr. Joshi. He helped me a lot in life later on as well. And he allowed me to sit for his classes. After getting to know him a little, and my desperation was to start working. So I asked him, I said, do you know anybody who will give me a job? So he recommended me to a friend of his. He told me, look, you know, no engineer has survived more than 6 months in this company. If you want, I can suggest your name. Because he's very, you know, he doesn't tolerate any errors, and he's very impatient. So nobody works for him for a long time. So I said, okay, never mind. You know, I was really desperate. So I started going to work, and as an internship. That's how my you know, work environment first started, immediately after BSc. But I was also experimenting at home. So I was developing things, and I would make things that anybody wanted. So, you know, I made, I would take the money for the components, for the parts, and I would build it. First, I built things for my own laboratory. I would make PCBs in my wash basin, bringing ferric chloride and ammonium, whatever, you know, I'm from the Dawa Bazaar, and this is a chemical market, and start doing experiments, drilling, cutting, filing, doing everything at home. And including building products. I would make, you know, things like running lights for some shop. Somebody wanted burglar alarm. Somebody would want time switch. Crystals had to be ordered specially in those days from companies like BEL. Car ignition system. I was having fun. And on the other side, I was, you know, working. So this is how I started in my process. But I became very, very good in electronics. I mean, by the time I was finished, before starting MSc, I had learned everything that was across the MSc course. I didn't need to go to MSc class, at least for electronics, for that matter.
Okay, so after MSc, you had taken a job already. So what was your first, you can say, important assignment at that time? Because as you said, your boss was very tough to deal with. So yeah. How do you win his heart? And which were the first solution or product which you have developed at that stage?
So going a little back, you know, what had happened was I was doing my laboratory practicals at home. I'd taken admission. I told my teachers, I want to work, so I'm not going to come to class. They said, this is not possible. So I never joined that college. I joined Kalina campus, and I went to a very distant college in Goregaon. And where nobody would ask me where I was. So, and my friends also who were in that college, I got to know them. I used to call them home because the college had no equipment to do practical exam or practical things. I had everything in my house. I would call them over. And after 6 months, I was merrily happy and my job was going fine. I never attended class anyway. I was doing my own things. And I got a letter from the college saying you're rusticated, you're expelled from college, you know. So I had to beg and plead and cry that no, you know, I'm not just wasteful, you know, I'm doing all these things. Luckily, they reinstated me. But that was a period where, you know, my initial period when I went to work, my boss, he was one of the top brains in electronics in the country in those days. And so he would ask me, you know about this circuit, you know about this phase lock loop, you know about this whatever, you know, circuits and all that. And I would just nod my head. And he would like say, you know this? I mean, he thought I was an intern just having done BSc with no engineering background. So he didn't think I would know all those things. He said, you're the first person at this age who kind of already knows all this stuff. But still, I was the only person working there. And it was a small place, which had even physical difficulties. I mean, I remember that even the parts of the ceiling plaster used to fall down. But I was more interested in the work and I was enjoying myself. In the beginning period, as per his, level of error tolerance was low, and he was very tough. But I was learning from him also. And he's one of the persons, again, who taught me thinking, how to think in electronics. And later on, as time went by, at one time I felt that, he was being very, very difficult. So I said, maybe I'm not the right person for you. But then he took pity on me. And as I grew, learning more and more things, I started improving on some of the circuits, some of the problems that had not been solved for ages before. I came up with answers to them, and he became a friend. He realized my talent. We became quite close afterwards.
Okay. And you said you are providing solutions to the companies as well as the individual. So your one of the typical you remember still that this was done by me before coming in the market later on. So is there anything you would like to share with us, sir?
Yeah, I think, one of the things I remember even while I was working, and because I was such an experimenter, at home, what I started doing was that I would look at components. I would buy components with the stipend money I earned. Two things I did with my stipend. My second year of MSc, attendance, they made it compulsory. So I would go early morning to class, go to in the afternoon to work, and in the evening come home. But I started studying components, like whether it was a transistor, an op-amp, a UJT, firing thyristors. I would study components. And at home, people would know I'm up to something. If the Colpitts oscillator went down and the TV started buzzing, they would know I'm up to something, Or the fridge got water empty because I stuck some sensor in the refrigerator, and then, it kind of got left open. So this was how they came to know I was, doing. So that knowledge of basic component helped me build something new. And the same thing happened when I would experiment with a chip. So I found out that, if the inner workings of a chip, of a BPM or a digital panel meter chip, if it had a clock, then how would the clock behave? So I could design the stopping of a clock to record the readings. And I used that technique because a sample hold circuits were very difficult to manage in those days. And the droop and the drift was too difficult to solve. So I decided to capture it first analog and then digital, which nobody had ever done before. And when that happened, it was like magic. So customer who for 5 years used to come to us and say, struggle, struggle, struggle. And every time they used to come back with this equipment and say, oh God, please do something better on this. But that was magic. It solved a problem that had never been solved before. And that was, some things like this I did even while I was working. But many things later on, but all of them came from fundamental based principles. I mean, this is one thing that I would like to say here, that a lot of people want to do projects, people want to do startups, but a lot of our learning really comes from basic interest in the fundamentals of the vocation we are in. And it is applying these things later on that allows us to create solutions. But coming back to, my whole pattern, the other thing that I consciously did, and I realized even in those days, I would spend all my money on auto travel. Whether it was from the station to the college, or from the college to my workplace, or from my workplace to a starting point of a bus station. I mean, I had to travel 3.5, 4 hours a day. And I would start my day 6 o'clock in the morning, and I would reach home at 8 o'clock in the night. And after that, I would sit with my dinner and do all the work that I was doing at home. And so I would work during the bus, in the train, all the circuits I would draw, the artworks I would make. And people also thought, while I was working whether I was so desperate that I had to do these things. But I valued time, so I would rather spend money and save my time. That was my instinct in those days.
Okay. And so what was the turning point when you decide that now it is a perfect time that I should start my own venture?
So when I was working, a couple of things happened. First of all, my family my father had been talking to my uncle, and they wanted to do a collaboration with an Austrian company. And since I was nowhere in the picture, but suddenly things moved forward, and they had to travel to Vienna, and they wanted a technical person to go along with them. So they thought that since I was already technical, the best person to take would be me. But for me, it became a kind of sort of commitment, that if I go with family, then I have to join the business. And I was not ready. So I told them, okay, look, my boss is like, he's qualified and he's one of the top brains. So you kind of take him. And my relation with my boss was also good. So rather than get into a deep commitment, I let him go, and their problem was solved. He was happy. But when I look back, I was extremely independent in my thought process. And that was something that, was one of the reasons why I did not want to simply go and work for somebody. Even when I was working, I remember I never treated the place I worked as something I was working or some place I was learning. I mean, today's people, they say, why are you going to XYZ place to learn? No, I never went to learn. I felt it was my own place. And I saw a letter lying one day on the table to my company used to make 1 and 2 and 3 things at a time, items. And I saw a letter lying on the table saying there were 50 units required of something. And my boss said, this kind of orders we don't get. I said, let me try. So on an off day, I went to convince the person who had sent the letter, and I convinced him how good our company was to do this. At the end, he said, you're a very good salesman. So I told him, I'm not a salesman. I'm just an apprentice working now. And, this is what you wanted to do. So we took that project, and I would travel till late in the night after office hours for several days to commission that project and to get that thing going. Later on, I even visited the company. That company where they were experimenting became one of the good packaging companies of the time. And I went and met the director and said, you remember those old days? But it was a spirit that I brought every time to the company, that it was something that belonged to me. And I made, even at one time, the company made the first few Apple duplicates, kind of product. They brought some kits from Singapore and built some Apple parts as computers. So the first 2 Apple computers, I went back to my college, told my professor, I'm making Apple computer. So I went and even sold those. So this was the spirit. But after a while, I stopped working, and then I thought I wanted to start on my own. I told my boss I'll work for 3 years. 1 year after MSc, I quit after 3 years. And then I started making equipment for colleges. So I started making like power supplies. I repaired oscilloscopes, and started a company in partnership again with Milind. But that company didn't, he went on his way. He started working somewhere else, and then we dissolved the company. But, and I went back to my boss and, said, okay, I'm doing these things. But I was still idle. So I went back to work for him. Later on, he offered me a partnership. And I said, we'll do this. So I was all ready to do partnership. After about a few months passed, I was married by then. A year down the road, it was not happening. And I was getting frustrated. So I gave a long notice of 6 months, and I said, now I will be on my own. And I told my father, look, I understand that you don't have so much money, but he had saved up some. So I told him, you kind of put me up in a place where I will go and work. So we bought a gala in Ansa Industrial Estate, and my uncle put up half the money. He put up half the money. That was built in partnership with him. So that's how I started. There was almost early 1987. I kind of left everything. And the only reason I started business was I didn't want a job where people would tell me what to do, because by then I had the confidence that I could build anything I wanted. So with that spirit, I went and I kind of sat there in one gala, all empty, with one table and a drafting board. That was all there was in it. And a lot of heat, because I didn't realize the neighboring, the opposite side, gala was a furnace, and they were making wires, and all that heat was coming in. I was sitting there on a hot Godrej iron table with a lot of heat, and started my business, so to speak. But I didn't know what was going on really.
And name was Selec right from the first day. And how you got the name?
No,
selected?
The name was over a dinner, and it was just, they had to create a company name and it had to be done in a hurry. So in about 5 minutes, because Tron had to be there as electronic, and somebody said Selec, and my grandfather finally decided that this was a good name. So we didn't think too much about it. But that was on a dinner table. But practically speaking, when I started in that place, I had no work, absolutely nothing. And for 6 months, in fact, I didn't have any work. I would go from door to door. I had to start with, my father had given me 10,000 rupees as a capital, and it was dwindling because I was taking home small amount of money home as well. And I used to go door to door to door. I built some product for showcasing as a sample. Started somehow with creating timers, which were electronic timer and digital product, but it was not accepted by anyone. I would go to some places and they would not like the price. They would say all sorts of things. Isme sona rakha hai kya? I mean, why is it so expensive? So it was very disheartening. But after 6 months, somebody walked in. I mean, one of the persons who had seen my capabilities when I worked. I mean, he realized, because I had solved that problem of the dampener hold, and he was impressed by it. So, and he knew where I was. So, but he was very loyal to my boss. And I still remember this person, his name is MK Punjabi. I don't know, many people in the panel industry would know him. He's one of the two people who helped me in that stage of life. He walked in 6 months later saying he had work for me, and he was my first customer. And I really loved the relationship I had with this person all through the time he was alive. It was quite different. I mean, that relationship you cannot describe, where he was not a customer, he was a friend, he was a mentor, and he somehow, wanted me to succeed, so to speak. That's the feeling that was there. Thereafter, other people got to know of me. Larsen and Toubro was close by. So I would go to L&T and beg for a job. But L&T had a very strict process of registration. So for a very long time, they never even registered me. So, there's another person at L&T. After talking almost for 45 minutes one time to him, there was a person called Shivraman. And he heard me a long time. And then he almost took pity on me, and he drew on the paper. He said, you make this product for me. Now, I told him that, okay, give me time. I'll verify how this can be made in a week's time, come back to you. So I worked out the possibility of making the product, and I said, okay, we'll do it. After that, it took a while for L&T to register me, but 6 weeks later, I think it was almost 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, I don't remember, but I created this product, and it was up for testing. I had to go to commission it. And when I went to L&T, I saw that there was a Japanese equipment, so sophisticated, sitting right next to my equipment. And it had to perform. They had purchased that equipment at 10 times the price that they had paid me. But the funny thing was that I had to now pass this test, and nobody had ever done that project before. So if it was only my equipment, they couldn't have made out that there was something wrong. But with a sophisticated Japanese equipment from a company called Miyachi for spot welding monitoring, it was like I was really on test, and that was make or break for me. And when they took the shot of spot welding at some maybe 30-40 kiloamps of current, and both the equipments clocked exactly the same reading, that was a moment of the biggest relief I felt in my life, because that is something I'd passed, that, okay, I was now in. That was a feeling. And, this person, Shivraman, he subsequently left L&T, he joined Rallies India, and which is Tata company. A few months went by, and he called me on Independence Day, and he said, you know what, this technology that you made, BHEL won a national award to do this. So I said, that's great. I mean, award and all is fine, but I'm really out of work, you know. I mean, that person, whatever work came his way, 100%, he diverted to me after that day. And so on one side, I started getting work. On the other side, L&T, I was registered. And while I was in L&T, and I used to visit the shop floors, and I made up my mind, I mean, in my heart and mind, I felt that all of these equipment was something I could make. And I started building things, which were right from that time, a much greater value. Things that were selling for 3,500 rupees or so, I could make them at 1/3 the price, 1,200, 1,300 rupees. Because people were importing expensive components. I was designing from ground up. Again, this whole capability to design from component level made a lot of difference. I also, you know, I had business instinct. So I ordered a lot of parts from mechanical parts that were common to all product. I designed the electronics that was common to everything. I created a platform. So what was delivery time in L&T was like 3 months from other people. My delivery time was 2 weeks and price was 1/3. So there was, you know, in the beginning, purchase didn't want to register me. Now purchase wanted to push me, saying, if you kind of go with this kind of person's product. And I started building things that hitherto, I mean, this was before 1990, where I was building true RMS watt meter, I mean, true RMS meters, panel meters, watt meters, pickup drop-off timers. There were so many things I was building, and which were even this monitoring equipment, weld monitoring equipment was true RMS equipment monitoring up to 100 kiloamps of current within 10 milliseconds. And the technology was not available to do this. It was putting together such a lot of technology parts that I had learned to a combination of that I could do this. I still remember at that time, I had to build a Rogowski coil, and nobody had heard of a Rogowski coil. I mean, even the biggest, I went to the biggest CT makers at that time, Precise Electricals, and they never heard of a Rogowski coil. I designed, built, and created Rogowski for testing the weld monitoring equipment, because you couldn't use an iron core for that work. So there were so many things. Even the weld monitoring equipment, I realized later, was built by BHEL, but I mean, it never worked. And because I sold one to TVS Suzuki later on, and I could see the BHEL equipment there. And I said, why did you buy mine? He said, because the BHEL they had commissioned hadn't actually worked. And I was only the second person in the world to do that equipment. So these were some of the things that, you know, happened by natural event. And after that, people I became quite popular in the switchgear industry. So through Mr. Punjabi and through other people who got to know me in the switchgear field, I started making a lot of switchgear test equipment and things which they would just simply, it was just the thought process that something came to their mind and they would order it from me. So they would say, please make a point-on wave starter. You know, some on the point-on wave, we want to create a start for a signal for testing equipment. They would come to me for all sorts of things. I made hundreds of equipment, and you know, whether it was for washing machines, for timers, for hotels on one side, you know, where Rallies was working, and a lot of switchgear test equipment on the other side. And by default, over time, we became one of the most prominent switchgear test equipment suppliers. But everything was bespoke. I mean, everything I did was custom built. I was purely doing what was self-employment. There was no business really, because I was not earning much. The only time I really got to start doing business was Rallies came up with, you know, first they gave me a job to do security systems. They took it back because, you know, I was a one-man band with 2 people in the company, me and the soldering assembler, and they said, how can you manufacture this? But after a while, they couldn't get it done by somebody else, so they came back and I had to develop it in 8 days flat. And they took it to UK to show it to their collaborator or something. And afterwards, they suddenly told me, please make 1,000 units. I said, I don't have the capacity. But one engineer from there came and told me, please take this job because they'll give it to somebody else and force you to part with design. So I said, okay, I will do this. And then I put a board outside on the gate saying we are hiring. You know, typically in Hindi, you say, bharti ho raha hai, you know. So 20 people, fresh guys came, some of them underage, and they didn't know anything. So I taught them soldering, this, that, and the other. I went to colleges, hired 3 trainees. One of them broke his hand, so I used to pay him auto fare to come from his house. And we started building these things. 1,000 unit order was huge. I mean, I still remember it was to the tune of 10 lakh rupees. 10 lakh rupees in those days, a lot of money. So we made home security systems. And I started, by then I had invented other things. I mean, people don't know, but things like, you see labels which are like overlay or plastic labels. I used to sit with screen printers and I could see that there was possible to print on the plastic from the back side. So I took that as a project and I said, I'll make the labels out of plastic, not out of metal anymore. So I think I was one of the first people to make plastic labels. But I used to go to the plastic market at Abdul Rahman Street, pick up the plastics, get them cut at the cutter, bring them back. I would go to the carton punch maker and get the labels printed from the screen printer, take it to the cradle press, get it cut. So there was a lot of things which were very, like ground up, but it was different than what people did. So that was my kind of, way of those years. Of course, a couple of other things happened is that because I got this money, then I told my uncle that, I didn't want a partnership. So I bought out his share of the gala. And then I was completely independent. Then I was on my own. That was the way, things happened. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I will just, this will be a last question from my side, since you are talking continuously for 1 hour.
Right.
But till now, what we are doing was a tailor-made or a solution provider job. Since though it was a security system, though it is in a quantity of 1,000, but it was not a, you can say, off-shelf job or a standard product. So when your first standard product came in the market, and what was
I
that?
would have gone on making security systems, but they shut down that entire division. So I lost that business immediately as it had started. But what did happen was that I had enough money. I went abroad, and one of my trips abroad, I went to see the Productronica show. And there I saw all these machines. They were worth so much. I mean, I didn't even have the guts to ask the price. Today, I know that no machine would have cost less than $100,000. And it kind of shook me, And I came back from that exhibition. I had nothing more to do. I had planned 3 days. But after half a day at the show, I went and slept in the hotel room. I mean, I had enough. And I came back completely demoralized. I realized, what am I doing? I'm making things by hand. The world is in a different place. And this is not the way electronics is going to run, There was a wake-up call for me. So when I came back, I decided that this is something I had to build standard product. Otherwise, there was no way forward. But in the meantime, I had also started making some products. I mean, this is something that people probably don't know, but since I was developing so many products, I had already also developed a timer, which was on the same circuit. But EAPL had come to the market by then with a DIN rail timer. And my timer that I had, even before that, that EAPL timer was a square 40 mm by 40 mm panel mount, product. And but I saw the circuits were really the same. That gave me an idea, that if they can do this standard product, I mean, I have to just convert the circuit from what I was doing into a different shape. And I thought that was a good idea. So that allowed me to kind of say, okay, let me do this. That was an interesting way to make standard product. So I made a timer similar in shape to a DIN rail timer that was EAPL's timer, and then decided to launch it. I mean, but in those days, the real struggle was that a lot of products were available. The indirect taxes were very high, and I didn't want to sell in cash. So I had to subsidize the product, otherwise it would not be competitive. And it was a silly product. After all these high-level developments I had done, relatively it was a silly product to make. But that was a choice, I mean, I didn't know business. Maybe it was the wrong decision. But we came into the market, and then I decided to go and approach a lot of dealers. I said, this is the way to go and sell in the market. Now, the dealers were happy, because many people had not got the EAPL dealership. So they were happy that they had an alternate product. What we didn't realize, what they and I did not realize, that a Me Too product for a company that was doing already well and had very reasonable prices was not interesting for the customer at all. and the whole thing bombed. I mean, we never sold anything. The dealers bought stuff, but we never made a success out of the timer story initially. And that's how we got into making standard product. But this is just a part of that, part of that history.
Sir, you refer to the exhibition from where you got the idea that we need to produce on the mass production. What was that year and when was that exhibition is?
So that exhibition was in 1999. And, so in between, there were other struggles now. So I had my share of court cases by then, which was part of the struggle of the journey I started. They wanted to demolish one of my factories. There was a court case, and I was fighting that. On the other hand, my land, I had applied for land at MIDC in Mahape. This land was taken away and declared open space. So there was fight going on with MIDC. At the end of 1999, there was a strike. My business was going reasonably okay with some 40, 45 people, and they were decided to strike. So I would pack everything into a car, take it to another location, manufacture there, bring it back, and keep the business going. Luckily, the business was small enough to manage, but it affected my psychology, And for that reason, later on, we made a few of our people who were loyal workers. We made them to start their own little shops, and we outsourced a lot of the work because we didn't want to get into trouble again. But after coming back from this exhibition, the whole concept was to build scale. So we started making products at scale. And I also thought that we needed to stand in international exhibitions. So 2 decisions I took. One is that if I made enough money, I would buy machines. The second was that earliest possible that I could do it, I would go into an international exhibition. So we started participating in Hanover show by the time it became 2003. But we built, because the dealers were there now, and somehow we got around the timer problem because we differentiated the application. So realizing we couldn't go head on, we started differentiating product with application. We made products at different application at different prices. And in a few years, the timer really did very well. We started getting known as a timer company almost. And volumes by the next few years, in fact, picked up. We probably became number 1 volume wise, even if I don't know the situation otherwise. But in many years, we actually, because we had many products by then. So products were developed, and we started participating at Hanover show from 2003. And at 2000, around that time, by then I had got the land back from MIDC. We put up a small factory. I mean, if you're able to give me screen sharing, I can show that, today, now they come to the context of it. I can show what it looks like.
Yeah, it's unable, sir. It's unable.
Samir bhai, I think for the last 1 hour, you are continuously talking, and we have come up to the 2001.
Yeah, let's go forward. Let's go forward. We'll take it the next time, the pictures.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. So I think from there, future journey we will take in the next lecture or next topic, next success story. So I request all our listeners, if you have got any doubts, if you want to question Samir ji regarding his journey so far from, you can say, dust to 2000. So you are most welcome to post your questions. Samir ji will give you 100% answers on that.
Mr. Milind Upadhyay is there in the...
Yeah, sir. Vishal sir, 1 minute. And from 2002 to till date, the journey we will cover in the next success story on next Sunday, exactly at 11 o'clock. So I request now, Vishal ji, you can take the questions which are there in the chat box. Okay.
First is, Mr. Milind sir has shown his gesture by saying thanks because you mentioned his name. He's there in the room. If you can ask him to switch on the camera, he can be on screen. Yeah.
मिलिंद जी, आपका कुछ उनके बारे में जो थॉट्स है, जरा एक विदिन से थोड़ा सा बताइए about Samir.
Hi Milind, good to see you here.
You're on mute.
Mute. Unmute, please, Milind ji.
Please. Milind ji, please. Thank you.
Before Milind starts, Milind is a great experimenter himself. So go ahead, Milind.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great thing to talk about Samir because I always admire his friendship, and we have been doing a lot of things. In fact, I remember many Chinese food which we used to eat in the night at South Bombay. I mean, those were the wonderful days during the college. Yes, I really like Samir's way of the way he has built up. Of course, success story is something which anybody can see. But most important, what I like about him is that he takes utmost details of everything. In fact, whenever he used to first make the PCBs, my mother, my auntie, and everybody used to learn from him how to make an artwork. I mean, it was so nice of him that he taught everybody, and his soldering was perfect during those days. And everything what he could do was with a perfection. In fact, I'm not that much perfectionist. I mean, like I do things, but then my things are too haphazard. But what Samir does is absolutely great. I mean, he's a perfectionist. I also like about him is that there are very few electronics companies today who take an utmost care about outer looks. Because I have been also moving around with many companies, many countries abroad. And I see that, whenever we will look into an Indian product, whatever it may be, an Indian product and a product abroad, product made abroad, has got a large difference in looking of it. I mean, the performance wise, they may be the same. I mean, if you take a 12-volt power supply, maybe a 12-volt power supply made in India would perform much better, maybe, or maybe an equivalent way to other things, other countries' product. But our looks are too bad. What I like about Samir is that he is the first person whom I have come across who has taken a conscious decision of making a plastics by himself and making a very good plastics to an international standard. And that's really admirable, because in electronics is one thing. And typically what I see that, any technocrat, even like me, probably, like will think that, okay, my circuit has to be perfect. My circuit has to give all specific values and everything, but really don't care about how it looks, how a customer sees it. And most of the customers, really speaking, they go into the looks. They don't go into the technical details. I mean, I'm sure that most of the people who use power supply today don't know what is the ripple current of that power supply, but they would definitely look what is the price and what is the how it looks like, or what is the display and how colorful it is. So this is where Samir has really taken utmost care, and I think that is one of the great point about his products. And of course, I mean, all other things are as good as a great friend. So I think I'm done with that. It was very inspiring.
Thank you.
I ask Director Mr. Anand Bhai to ask his question.
सर आपका वो ओमरॉन का स्टोरी जरा बताइए ना, वो everybody is eager to learn, listen to it.
It wasn't much of a story, really. I mean, I can share with you. So as we said, I started making plastics. The other thing I started making product was in plastic very early. So my square timer in plastic was designed as per international, the body was really international. So when that product went to a lot of the marketplace and OMRON was doing a study tour of India, they found out that this company is making this product. And who is this company that could make a product this international looking in India? So they came searching for me, and 9 of their top people had come, 9 or 7, I don't remember now. I remember in a small gala, they filled the whole room, and they said, oh, this small company is making this product they couldn't imagine. So that's that sometime in the mid-90s it happened. But that was all there was to it, Anandji. There wasn't anything greater than that.
It is a good thing, na? The OMRON people came to your factory to see who is our competitor or who is the equivalent to us. So that is again a great thing, not for you, but for us, so definitely.
Yeah, but I wasn't much of a competitor to them. So,
but now you are, I think. You can say.
We are still far away from those situations, but it doesn't matter,
Okay. Okay.
Sarvari ji has a... Oh, okay. Sriram bhai, go ahead.
Yeah. Vishal ji, 1 minute. Samir ji, Mr. Anubhav has put one question. Who was your mentor in your challenging days in electronics, applied electronics? And second was, which book you had referred for motivation?
So somehow, I mean, two things. One is that some of the people I mentioned who mentored me and helped me. I think in my very early days, Mr. B.V. Joshi, I used to take his appointment, go to his house after dinner once a week, and I would take his guidance to verify whether what I was designing and doing was right or not. He helped me a lot. Where I worked 3 years for great story with, Mr. Shivaraman, who was my boss. And so these are the people who taught me electronics to start with. Of course, my electronics, really speaking, to be very frank, my learning entirely was on my own. I did receive guidance and I sought the guidance. I mean, I went out and asked for guidance. But because of my independent ability to learn, I think that helped me. An inspirational book or books, again, to me, I was a bit philosophic from an early age. I read, my grandfather translated the Gita into English, and I could make sense out of it at the age of 17. So there was a spirit that allowed me to be on my own. I didn't need so much of external motivation somehow. That's just the way I'm built.
Okay. Yes, Ram.
Yeah.
The next question is okay. Next question is by Sarvari Saneji. Madam, you can unmute and speak.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Sir, it is not a very smooth journey of your life, whatever I'm listening from almost 1 hour. And there are so many ups and downs. Being a teacher and in this field from last 25 years, I can imagine about it. Some queries or questions are there, that right now, even though the students are taking the subject like EXTC or electronics, but many of them are not expertise like you, or not thinking also. And maybe the reason they are more inclined toward the software, because the jobs in the softwares are comparatively very high right now. So what is your advice to the students? Because if anyone want to become entrepreneur in the pure electronics, because right now another thing is also happened, because the microprocessor, microcontroller, so many things have come up. So what will be the your any suggestions for the people, those who want to enter in your area for the further things?
So thank you for this question. It's very important. I have a lot of feeling about this. Because the amount of focus and emphasis we give on success is so high. And that's why maybe I mentioned the word success at the start. Is a story of success. Is we only look at success, but and we are teaching our children that being successful is what is the goal in life. We don't allow them to explore. And really, a subject like electronics is a creative. It gives your creative mind ability to explore something. So going to a particular field because it has potential, schools and colleges are directing people in this manner, but concentrating on one's vocation and building that vocation is born out of interest, curiosity, and passion. So unless and until we remove the pressure of success, remove the pressure of performance, and allow that curiosity to unfold and learn the things from ground up. We want people to do projects. We want people to do startups. We want people to become entrepreneurs. But I think that comes very much later. First, the basic interest has to form. And we don't allow people to do this. Therefore, we don't get great talents in this country. And the nation really is going to be lacking this engineering talent. There is a void because of this. So anybody who really wants to do well, I would say allow the person to grow. Once a person is confident enough to do things by themselves, they can go anywhere in the world and they will be able to earn money. Because it is the confidence of knowing the subject which is more important. Then we think about vocation. For example, I might never have started business if my partnership with my boss had worked. Maybe never. And many people who are also working, if the spirit of entrepreneurship is there, I know so many companies who the people within their company have an ecosystem can do very, very well. So you have to make the best of a given circumstance in life and not start running after something because somebody else did it. And this is the reason why I never made a product that is copy, duplicate, following anybody else's product. I mean, if you see the entire range of everything, it comes from being original in some senses, not forced to be original, but original by nature. Does it answer your question, by the way?
Thank you very much, sir. I will definitely convey your all these words to my students, those who really want to do something in this field. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, madam. Thank you for your valuable question. Samir ji, since we are a timer manufacturing company, we should abide also program by time. So I think clock is giving me some signal. So, and there are lot of questions going to come. So you can put it, we are going to take that question in our next presentation or in next seminar on next Sunday. So your questions are most welcome from all of us. And now I request Mr. Sanjeev Lodha ji, who is our Vice Chancellor from Rajasthan, to offer a vote of thanks.
Before Sriram, before going forward, give only 5 minutes to the students present over here if they want to ask anything, because they, they may not ask if you ask them. So it is very.
I think Anand sir, I think let them questions come. We will hand over to Samir ji so that he will take in a.
Okay, sir.
Mr. Sanket Rokde has asked, sir, if you wish to give one advice to our young entrepreneur coming up generation, what it would be?
I think all entrepreneurs, I would say, are solution providers. We are all solution providers. I would say there are enough opportunities, and you look for somebody's problem closely enough, find a space to solve it, and be with that. I think I would avoid, if I was a new entrepreneur, I would avoid trying to say what XYZ did and do that. I would look for people who wanted a solution to something, and I think the business evolves.
Vishalji, there are 2-3 questions which are in the same tune, which Samir ji has already answered. I think if there are still more questions, we will take in the next session.
Sure. So if any question,
okay. So I request Mr. Sanjeev Lodha ji to take the mic, please. Mr. Sanjeev Lodha.
Okay, I am audible.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. It was an eye-opener. It was really, the way he has learned things, Samir Sahab has learned things, the same way, even like we should, as an entrepreneur also, every day you have to learn. Every day you have to have passion to learn. Then only you will get the success. So that is what I feel about his life story. And the way he has developed, in spite of all the struggles in life, like going to court cases, land getting into problem, shed getting into the working place getting into problem, strike. In spite of all this, he has come out of it, and he has done really well. He has come up very well. It was only due to his passion, due to his learning. He was never interested, success comes automatically if you are learning things, if you are doing things in passion, if you are doing things with interest. So that's what I tell everybody. According to me, if we learn from his life, it is basically, you don't have to run for success. The success will come automatically. Whatever you do with passion. So दोस्तों, आज के लिए इतना ही. I think it's an intermission. Film अभी बाकी है. Next Sunday, again, we'll meet at this time at 11 o'clock. Please do attend and take his learnings of life. Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
One moment.
I request everyone to make the video on so that Vishalji will take our group photograph.
With a smile.
With smiling face.
Can we give 1 minute to switch on your camera, please?
Yeah, please, everyone.
Redmi Note 9, TechnoSpark, Anand Prajapati, Matre.
1+6.
1+6, yes. 1+6, 7, sir. Okay. And, almost.
Vishalji, can you
Yes,
tell
sir.
me what was the total number of participants in
It went
today's
up to
seminar?
165, and probably total individual different participants attended were more than that.
Great.
I'll share you on our WhatsApp group that actual number.
Sure. Okay.
I request
sir.
everybody to smile now. Smile,
Srikanth,
please.
Sriram, can I add something?
Yeah, please, sir.
Smile, sir. Satish, sir. Smile.
Satish sir would like to say something, sir.
Yeah. Now go ahead, sir. Done.
Have you finished all 150 people, Vishal?
Yes, the camera is on first within first 50 only. So I have taken the first picture.
Okay, then you finish and then I would like to add something.
Okay. Done, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Welcome, Farooq.
That's all right.
Friends, the other day, I'm very fond of listening to interesting things. So today I really enjoyed listening to Samir Bhai for more than almost 2 hours. So that's one thing we must really appreciate. And after 2 hours, the story is not
2 hours.
The story is not yet over.
1 hour 21 minutes.
Yeah, 120.
1 hour 21 minutes. We
No,
started.
we started 11:15.
11. Sorry.
11:15. 1 hour.
1 hour exact.
Welcome. I was listening to one saying the other day. He was talking about success, a very relevant subject to our today's talk. And he defined success as the third step. The first step of success is growth in turnover. Success in business, growth in turnover, increase in turnover, that is growth. Increase in turnover with ethics is progress. Increase in turnover with ethics and morality, that is real success. And we have all learned from Samir Bhai today that he's imbibed all these three characters in his journey of life. And that is why we call it a success. Congratulations, Samir Bhai.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We can note there is one participant over here, Mr. David from Nigeria. I hope everybody has noted that. Hi, David.
Vishal, can you pin him?
Yeah, Mr. David, you there?
He's from Nigeria, sir.
He's from Nigeria. I think he has used his product and he has given regards for that. Hi, David. Can you say something? You are on mute. You are on mute. You are on mute. Hi, David. You are on mute. Yeah,
hello,
please.
good morning.
Yes.
Hello, good morning from Nigeria.
Yeah.
I really want to appreciate Director Kaji concerning his passion for the product Selec. We are proud to have you here in Nigeria and at the same time all over the world. It's a good product. It's a fantastic product, as I said in my chat. And we look forward to establish in Nigeria at the same time and to push it all around the industry. Most especially some of the products I've purchased for companies, so fantastic, so powerful. And it's incomparable at the same time with all the other products that I've used before. Thank you very much. I pray that God will give you more strength and more knowledge to grow more wider. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
With this, whatever the remaining questions are there, we will surely take it the next Sunday seminar. So with this, I thanks once again, Samir ji, and see you next Sunday, same timing. Thank you very much.
See you again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, Vishal, we can conclude the meetings.
Sure,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you, everyone.